It all started on a regular afternoon. One of those days when I came home from the gym feeling drained and in desperate need of a shower. The house was illa quietus. I walked in. I noticed that neither my mom nor my sister was around. It was just me. Nothing unusual except that it had been like this for years now since my dad passed away 5 years ago. I'd grown accustomed to the house being quieter without him, but I didn't mind much. It was just how things were, so, as usual. I headed straight for the bathroom, feeling the sweat from my workout starting to cling to my skin. But in my haste, I realized I hadn't grabbed any clothes to change into after my shower. I wasn't worried, though. No one was home, I thought. Why bother? I'll be done in a few minutes and they won't be back for a while. I dropped my clothes in the middle of the house and made my way to the bathroom. The hot water was refreshing, washing away the exhaustion from my workout. I spent a little longer than usual in the shower, savoring the peace. I wasn't rushing, thinking I had plenty of time to unwind, but little did I know time was about to take a strange turn. When I finally finished my shower and stepped out completely, naked, I was caught completely off guard. I walked back into the living room, expecting the house to be as quiet and empty as it had been when I arrived instead. There were my mom and sister sitting on the couch, looking just as stunned as I was. The sight of them in the living room where ID left my clothes only moments ago hit me like a ton of bricks. My heart stopped for a second. There we were frozen. In that awkward moment, I hadn't expected anyone to be home, and certainly not to walk in on them while I was totally naked. The silence stretched on for what felt like forever. I could see the surprise in their eyes, and maybe even a little amusement. I couldn't form a single word. I grabbed my clothes in a frantic panic, feeling more embarrassed than I ever had, and dashed toward my room. My face burned red from the most awkward and embarrassing situation of my life, in a blur of panic. I locked the door behind me, trying to process what had just happened. My mind raced. How could I have been so careless? I was mortified. And though my family was understanding afterward, the embarrassment never fully faded. It's been about a week since that moment, and for a while I convinced myself that everything was fine. I told myself maybe they had forgotten or just moved past it after all. It was a one-time awkward situation, and life has a way of getting back to normal. But even though I tried to put it behind me, there was something lingering, something that didn't sit right. It felt like there was an unspoken tension in the air, a lingering presence like a shadow that never fully left. And after seeing the way my sister acted around me lately, I started to wonder if they really had forgotten, or if maybe they hadn't. I was sitting in my room, lost in the virtual world of the video game I was playing. The sound of buttons clicking and the thrush of in-game action filled the space around me, offering a brief escape from the awkwardness that had been hanging over me. I wasn't thinking much about what had happened here earlier until I heard the door creak open. I turned to see my sister standing there, a mischievous grin on her face. She stepped into the room and I gave her a quick smile, half expecting her to start talking about something completely unrelated like usual. But instead of just talking, she started to joke around with me, her laughter filling the air as she teased me about something silly like she always did. It seemed innocent enough at first, just a playful banter we shared countless times over the years. But there was something different in the way she was acting now. She wasn't just joking or laughing with me. Her touch felt more frequent, more lingering. It was like she was trying to push some boundary. I wasn't quite prepared for her. At first thought, it was all part of the normal sibling dynamic. Maybe she was just being playful. Like we often were with each other growing up. We always had a lot of fun together, from harmless roughhousing to just sitting and laughing over inside jokes. It was the kind of bond that made us feel comfortable and connected. But as she got closer, her hand brushing lightly over my shoulder or back as she leaned in to say something, I started to feel a little uncomfortable. The touches weren't aggressive or inappropriate, but they felt more intentional, more deliberate than usual. Couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted since that day. Maybe I was just overthinking it after all. It was still my sister, and we had always been close. But I couldn't ignore the small nagging feeling in the back of my mind that made me wonder if something was different now, was imagining things. Or was there something she was trying to express without saying outright? Her laughter continued as she playfully touched my arm and teased me about my gameplay. But the whole atmosphere had changed. The comfort, and I had felt before, seemed to be replaced with a strange unease I couldn't explain. I tried to focus on the game, but it was hard to ignore how her press felt more intense now, almost as SI. She was trying to bring up something that neither of us had addressed. What's worse, I didn't know how to respond. Should I act as if everything was normal, like nothing had changed? Or was it better to address the elephant in the room, even if it was uncomfortable? As the moments passed, I started to feel more self-conscious, more aware of every little touch, every glance. I couldn't help but wonder what was going on in Herman, and whether this was just her being herself, or if something deeper was at play. Anyway, I continued play my video game deeply and gross my focus locked on the screen, oblivious to almost everything else around me. Out of nowhere, I felt her hand touch my thigh. I barely registered it at first. I thought maybe it was just an accidental touch. She had a habit of messing with me when I got too wrapped up in a game trying to get air action. But when it happened again, I felt a slight sense of unease. Growing by the third time, it was undeniable she was intentionally reaching over her hand, lingering in a way that didn't feel accidental at all. Finally, I pulled myself out of the game, realizing it needed to address it. Me. "A stop," exclaimed, pushing away from the console and turning to face her fully. My voice came out louder and sharper than I'd intended, and the words seemed to hang in the air. Her face shifted, her usual mischievous smile fading as silence settled between us. For the first time, I could see something changed in her expression, a mix of surprise, maybe even a hint of hurt. We were siblings, after all, bound by a carefree, close bond that had always been rooted in trust and playfulness, but now standing there in that thick silence, I could feel a strange tension building, something unsettling. It felt like an invisible line had been crossed, and I suddenly found myself questioning everything about the moment. "What's the matter, G?" finally asked, breaking the silence. Her smirk returned, but with an edge I hadn't seen before. Can't take a little teasing. Her tone held a subtle challenge, as if daring me to confront whatever had shifted between us. The lightness was gone from her eyes, replaced by something harder. "To read." I took a deep breath, steadying myself as I faced her. "You have to forget what you saw that day," I said firmly, trying to cut through the awkwardness. I hopped. Those words would make her understand that we needed to leave certain things in, the past, things that weren't meant to linger or change the way we saw each other. She stopped in her tracks, giving me a mock-offended look, crossing her arms dramatically as she stared me down. The usual lightheartedness in her eyes was gone, replaced by a playful but determined glare. How could I stop? How could I forget what I saw? She teased, lifting an eyebrow with a smirk, tugging at the corner of her mouth. "I've never seen bigger like that. This awesome. You have a big thing and you're my brother. Don't you want to share it with me? Come and just let me try it already." I rolled my eyes, surprised, but she wasn't done. She clearly thought this through. "Best, besides," she added, tilting her head like she was about to deliver the final blow. "Mom even said she wants to try it, and also my father didn't have the size. Go ask her if you don't believe me." She looked so confident, throwing in her favorite tactic, Mom's approval. She knew I'd find it hard to argue with that. I ran over to my mom, in shock, practically stumbling over my words. "Mom, what on earth is she talking about? Did she say that? What?" My voice trailed off, trying to process what I just heard. My mom looked at me a bit, taken aback but still composed. She gave a little chuckle and said, "Well, you know, she's actually right. I'm 55 years old, and believe it or not, I've never seen size like this before either." Until one day she finally came to me. Her voice was soft, but filled with a quiet determination. She looked at me with a mixture of hope and sadness in her eyes and said, "Come on. We're your family. We love you, and we want you to be with us. Don't shut us out." She took a deep breath before continuing. "It's been hard without your father. You know? He passed away 5 years ago, and I've been left to hold everything together on my own. I tried my best, but there are so many moments when I feel completely overwhelmed. Some days are just so lonely only, and I could really use someone to lean on, someone who understands I've missed you so much, and I know your father would have wanted us to stay close to support each other." She looked down for a moment as if gathering the courage to go on, and then spoke again. Her voice now tinged with a sense of urgency. "And your sister. She's almost 23 now. She's young, but she's been struggling too. She's never really had and want to depend on. No boyfriend, no close friend she can truly count on. She's just alone." Her voice so fast. She squeezed my hand. Not asking for a lot. I promise you'll enjoy it. You'll feel that sense of belonging again. It's what we all need, and I believe it's what you need." We looked at with a quiet intensity that made me feel like time had paused, and then without any warning, she reached for the hem of my shirt. Her fingers were steady but quick, slipping beneath the fabric and lifting it up, and before I could even understand her intentions, my shirt was gone. Her movements were deliberate, yet there was a tenderness in them, as if she was acting on some impulse that she herself didn't entirely understand. I was frozen, my mind racing in an attempt to piece together what was happening, but it was as though my body had lost the ability to react to every small gesture. She made her fingers brushing my skin, the way she tilted her head as she moved seemed to carrying unspoken message that I was struggling to decipher. Then she began to unbutton shared her hands, moving slowly, almost carefully. Sigh. Button came undone. Her gaze never left mine, and I could feel my heart pounding. My breath caught somewhere between shock and intrigue. I didn't know what to say, or if there was anything I should say. I didn't make a single move, unable to break the spell that had taken over the room, as she continued a surreal atmosphere, envelop us like we were both suspended in a place where words no longer had meaning or action spoke louder than anything we could possibly say. I wanted to ask her what was going on, wanted to understand the reason behind this sudden shift, but my voice felt trapped in my throat. All I could do was watch, as she peeled away the last layers of clothing, and it felt like each movement was somehow slow and yet impossibly fast. Sif time itself was B. I was still just trying to comprehend what was happening to make sense of the emotions swirling in my head. Curiosity, disbelief, a touch of apprehension. It was all happening so quickly, yet every second felt like it stretched out, hanging in the air, leaving me in a state of wonder and confusion. I laid eyes on them without any clothing. Something changed in me entirely. It was as if the world paused for a beat, drawing my attention to every detail of their bare skin, the way it caught the light, the soft curves and lines that seemed to invite my touch. It wasn't just an impulse. It was a slow, building need that I could feel in every fiber of my being, a craving that surprised even me. Thoughts of restraint began to blur, fading into the background as a more primal urge took center stage. In that instant, the only thing that seemed real was the space between us and the undeniable pull I felt toward them, and mind rays filled with images of what it would feel like, the texture of their skin under my fingertips, the warmth that I could almost sense radiating from them. It was a magnetic draw that was both thrilling and consuming, leaving me feeling like I was on the edge of something I couldn't quite name, but deeply yearned to experience. I felt my heart pounding faster, my breathing growing shallow. The desire to bridge that gap, to reach out to touch the feel intensified. Every rational thought melted away, replaced by a single powerful longing that I had never experienced with such intensity. Before the room around us seemed to fade into obscurity, leaving only the three of us in this charged moment. It wasn't just about the physical desire. It was something deeper, a connection that felt almost inevitable, as if every choice I'd made had led me right here to this moment and in that space. All I could think about was a touch, the sensation, and the electric connection waiting to be sparked between us. Without a moment hesitation, we dove headfirst into fulfilling our three deepest desires, barely stopping to consider what might come of it. Each urge, each hidden wish felt like it had finally clawed its way to the surface, demanding attention. The excitement and freedom of acting on them were all-consuming, like an intoxicating rush that swept us away from any sense of caution or hesitation. It felt exhilarating, liberating even to ignore the usual voices of reason, the caution whispers that might have otherwise held us back. We were caught in a whirlwind of powerful momentum that pushed us forward with each choice, no matter how reckless, seek decision-feeding. The sense that we were unstoppable, untouchable. We were driven by a mix of excitement, impatience, and perhaps even a touch of defiance. After all, these desires were things we had fantasized about, endlessly imagining what life would be like if we to go after them with nothing to restrain us. And now it was all unfolding like a dream brought to life. But in that rush, we didn't consider the ripple effects that might be set in motion, their repercussions that might come back to confront us. The consequences were vague, distant notions. Shadows we didn't want to acknowledge, much less confronted, felt as though the future could wait. What mattered was seizing this fleeting sense of freedom, as if time itself might stop for us just long enough to let us indulge in that moment. Each action felt justified, even necessary, like a piece of ourselves that had been hidden was finally being set free, and so continued, driven only by the thrill of experiencing everything we had longed for, racing ahead with hearts wide open and minds shut tightly to the potential cost of our actions.